My pleasure to introduce our speaker today, new fire chief for Kingsport, Jerry DeBerry. Jerry just started his tenure in May, so he's learning as fast as he can. He just retired from the Atlanta Fire Department in April, so it's a quick transition. Jerry is also the first fire chief that they've chosen outside of the department in Kingsport's history. What an honor to do that and all. I happened to talk to one of the assessors who I was hoping would be here today, but a longtime friend in the profession. He said he did an outstanding job in that time. He told me he had a very good chance based on what he saw. But he, as I said, he ended his career in Atlanta in April. He started his career as a volunteer at Ringo-Catoosa County Fire Service as a junior in high school at Ringo High. And that was 1989, I believe.
So, somewhere around
1996, he became a member of the Dalton Fire Department, and then in 2004, he became a member of the Atlanta Fire Department, and retired there, as I mentioned earlier, in April as Chief of Special Operations. Atlanta Fire Department just happens to be 1,200 people, about 10 times what Kingsport's Fire Department is. Chief has a undergraduate degree in fire administration from Waldorf University in Iowa, and he's about to get his master's, or maybe just did get it at Waldorf in operational administration, you know. And he has a grown son who's a fire service person in North Georgia. Also, he has a daughter and wife that have businesses together in Georgia. He's hoping to really tell about everything that's going on exciting here. As you know, we've had an outstanding fire department for a long time. Look to see what Chief DeBerry has in mind to move it to a higher level. So if you would, give a Kiwanis welcome to Chief Jerry DeBerry.
Wow, okay. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me today. I thoroughly enjoy getting out in front of people and talking to them about our fire department and about the fire service as a whole. That's why I'm still here doing this, because I have such a passion for what we do. First of all, let me tell you that I don't think you needed a video to sing, because it sounded pretty good in here to me. So I think y'all got a future ahead of you if you need to look in that area. But again, I really appreciate the opportunity to come out. This city's been nothing but great to me since I've been here. So I'm very enthusiastic about what the future holds too. As John said, I did retire from the city of Atlanta. I did 21 years there, got a total of 36 in the business. Probably some of my best years were my volunteer years. I volunteered up until February this year when I finally had to give it up due to transition. But really had a lot of good times, made good friends, serving the community as a volunteer. So I would say that's probably some of the best years that I've had in the fire service. I loved Atlanta. Atlanta was a good department to me as I retired as a special operations chief. That's kind of been my wheelhouse pretty much my whole career. And what's encompassed in that would be all of our technical rescue components, rope rescue, confined space, structural collapse, trench rescue. I managed our hazardous materials team. Our Department of Homeland Security fell under my umbrella, our SWAT medic program, and most recently our drone program. We have really gotten big into the drone business in the last few years. And so those are the kind of the programs I managed at the end. I still have a lot of firemen left in me. We joke about it all the time. I pretty regularly show up to incident calls, and I'll be dressed out and working with the guys right beside them. And it's not because I don't trust what they're doing, it's because I still love being out there with them. And so I think it means a lot to them. I enjoy that, and I will continue to do it until my body says that I can't anymore. And I do have those days sometimes. But anyway, let me go over a few things. When I got hired here, there were a few things that had kind of attracted me to the city in this area. Well, obviously the first one was the fire department. I wasn't necessarily looking for a job when I got the job, but I was getting near retirement and was kind of looking at the options out there. And really this one, I prayed about it, and I'm like, hey, if this is where I'm supposed to be, open these doors for me. If not, no big deal. I was happy where I was at. And these doors just opened, and it was a very easy transition for me. So it made me know that this is where I'm supposed to be at. But anyway, I was tasked when I got hired here to take this department back to the premier status it once was. That was the clear message that the city manager and the board sent to me, was that we want our fire department to be at the premier status it was before. And so my task was pretty simple. And so I came up with a vision. I'm going to share a little bit about my vision that I did during my hiring process, but we've actually taken that vision and implemented it in the fire department and made some big strides already. So I'll share a little bit about what we're doing, where we've been, where we're going, and I'll be more than happy to answer questions as we go through or at the end. Let me get this clicker working here. All right, again, thank you for having me today. I really love this area of the state. I'm a backpacker, so the mountains drew me here. The fire department drew me here. The fire department you guys have, you men and ladies have here in this community, is already an outstanding fire department. They're an internationally accredited agency, which is a very, very difficult thing to achieve. And they've been accredited since 1999 or 2000. And we're actually up for reaccreditation coming up this next year. They're also an ISO Class 2 fire department. So those things all attracted me. That tells me that this fire department in this city is doing something right to invest in a good city. And so those were things that also attracted me, but still the mountains were important to me. So I love being out in the country out here as far as the mountains. So anyway, I'm very glad to be here again. Our job here is to provide the highest level of service that we can. A little bit about the history. Most of you probably know more about this than I do, but it has a rich history here. It started as a volunteer organization in 1916, and the city assumed that financial responsibility in 1917. As most of you may be aware, we still have our first engine. It is sitting down at Station 1. I am proud to tell you that engine is still operational. We take a lot of pride in that history. We're big on history and tradition in the fire service as a whole. And so I take a lot of pride in that. My guys do also. So we get that truck out every week and we start it up and make sure it shined up. And we were fortunate this year that we actually made it through 2 parades without breaking down or anything. So that was a win for us. And we're going to try one more at Christmas if we can go 3 for 3 this year. We'll see. But it is a great piece of history, and we're very proud of that. And as John said, I am the first outside chief that the city's hired. They took a chance on me. That's a risk that municipalities take when they get somebody from the outside. And I'm thankful for that. But it's my goal and my hope that when I retire from here, that your next fire chief will be somebody from inside this fire department. So I'm glad to serve as the 9th fire chief of the city of Kingsport. Currently, just a few fun facts. If you didn't know, we have 8 fire stations in the city. Station 2 is probably the one that you hear the most about. It is up for replacement. That station was built in 1944, and it has definitely seen its share of life and is at the end of its life cycle. So we're hoping that we originally was on slate this year to do it due to the obvious budget constraints and where we found ourselves in as a city. We had to push that off a little bit. But I'm confident that we will move forward on this project either in 27 or 28. It is definitely much needed. If you've been by there, the conditions in that station are a little beyond what the firefighters need to be living in. But we've gone back to the drawing table on that. I met with the architect after I started here, and we looked at the plans to see how we could be more efficient in that construction process and basically take 3 phases and combine them into 1 phase and get this project done and hopefully save some money for the city at the same time. That station will ultimately end up housing our 2nd ladder truck, and our technical rescue team also runs out of that station. We operate the Regional Fire Academy for this region. This is one area that I take a lot of pride in, and I put a lot of focus in because I believe in order to be a premier department, this is where it starts. It starts at the training division. And so we are doing a lot of things in the training division right now to improve our ability to provide higher levels of training. One area that we were suffering in here in our department was leadership development, management development. We did a lot for the entry-level firefighter, but we didn't have a whole lot to offer for those folks in middle and upper management and leadership positions. So we've taken upon ourselves to start incorporating some programs for management leadership. We'll run our first pilot program matter of fact, in September, the 18th, 19th, and 20th, we'll start our first, what we call acting officer in charge class. This is a class I taught in the city for several years for those entry-level managers and leaders. So this will be our first leadership class. We just recently purchased 35 computers, And what that did for us is it gave us the ability to start doing what we call regional commission testing. So some classes that we take are national standard level classes, our fire officer series classes, our instructor classes. These are all commission level classes that require a state offered test, not something that we do internally. With this computers, it's given us the opportunity to now to start hosting that. We'll be the third center in this, the third fire academy in the state to be able to do this. And we'll be the only one in the Northeast region that does it. So we are excited about getting that. We have a recruit class in right now that will be the first ones to use this system. And our goal is to start hosting more and more regional classes and commission level classes as we move into next year. We also are adding an additional burn building at the training center as we speak. This will give us the ability again to do more scenario-based training, give more opportunities for our members to refine their skills. We've added some additional props at the training center as well. And we hope to host our first EMT class in the spring. We're working right now on course development with that area. And in the spring, our goal is to roll out our first EMT class internally with the end hope of being able to send a new recruit to fire school and immediately send them to EMT school afterwards before we ever put them on the truck. That will give us a better quality member coming out, and it provides more efficient operations for us. So we have a lot of things going at the training center right now, and this is huge in taking us back to where we need to be. Currently, we're staffed at 122 members. We are fully staffed. We just hired our newest member about a month ago. He's in recruit class that gave us the full staffing. We need additional staffing as we go forward. We are identifying those things. Again, that was part of what I was tasked with, to evaluate where we're at and where our needs were. So we're working diligently on that. We operate 8 frontline engines, 2 ladder trucks. We call them truck companies, but they're ladder companies, and 1 heavy rescue truck and 1 hazmat truck in the city. Another thing that we recently did was we added a second chief on duty during the 24-hour shift. So up until this time, we've operated with 1 chief on shift. In the fire service, we work under what's called span of control. And typically that span of control is 1 supervisor to 5 members or 1 supervisor to 5 units or stations. And so we were a little bit out of that. So we had an opportunity internally, without making any major changes, to add a second chief on duty. So we converted 3 of our senior officers into battalion chiefs. So now every day we have 2 chiefs on duty strategically placed in the city. And what this does for us is we have a fire incident or a major incident. It gives us 2 chiefs on scene. 1 chief to run the incident and manage it, and the other to become a safety officer and to make sure that our people are safe, that the buildings that we're operating in are safe, and to recognize any of those conditions that may be immediately dangerous to us. So this really gives us a big advantage to take care of our people and to manage an incident scene. So that's a big win for us. Our mission, when I came here, I reviewed both of these. We haven't changed our mission. It's still the same. We're here to save lives and protect property. Nothing about that has changed. That's the general focus of any fire agency in the U.S. and in the state of Tennessee. What we did do, though, is we looked at our vision to say, is our vision aligning with where we're wanting to be in the future? And I felt like that we probably needed to streamline that a little bit to match what the vision was of where I was tasked. Good to see you, City Manager. I was just telling that you tasked me when you hired me with taking us back to a certain status, and that's what we're doing. So with that, we came up with a new vision statement. Provide the ability to provide exceptional service, foster community involvement, advance professional development, and ensure sustainability at every level. And that's one of my big goals, is to make sure we're creating sustainability at every level, whether that's staffing, fleet management, vehicles, stations, training, all of those areas. We look at creating sustainability. And then we came up with our core values. What really serves as our compass, ensuring all members are aligned with what is truly important to us? Well, obviously for us, courage is a big one for us. You know, we're running into the face of danger just like our brothers and sisters in law enforcement. And when everybody else is running out, we're the ones running in. So it takes courage to do that. Well, I hold professionalism as a very high standard for us. I expect all of our members, including myself, to operate at a very professional level in the way we act and our appearance. And so professionalism was a natural fit for us. And of course, integrity. People trust us that when we go in to their residence, if they've had a fire or something, that they can trust that we're not going to go in and steal their stuff or make unnecessary damage in their home or in their business. And so it's important for us to act right even when nobody's watching us. And of course, compassion. We do a lot of EMS, a lot of medical service responses. A large majority of the calls that we run are medical related, and for various reasons, whether it's trauma, sick calls, or whatever the case may be. And so there's a certain level of compassion that we're expected to share, and what I expect our members to treat our citizens and business and visitors like. And then lastly, most is commitment to excellence. We can't get to where we need to be without being committed to excellence and keep striving to be better at what we do every day. And I am blessed to say that every member of our fire department is on board with where we're trying to be at. So this is kind of my vision. I'll kind of just touch on these. I won't go into a lot of detail, but I'll touch on these. I kind of developed 6 areas that I felt like that we needed to look at and address. And either we were already doing it and we didn't need to make any changes, or we were doing it and we just wanted to enhance it a little bit, or maybe it was something we weren't doing at all that we needed to implement. So our first area is service excellence. Our second area is community engagement, professional development, health and wellness, prevention and education, and then lastly, again, creating sustainability. So I'll just briefly touch on these different areas and kind of give you an overview of where we're at with this. So under our first strategy and our vision is service delivery. And what I'm looking at when I look at service delivery is how are we responding to incidents? Are we making sure that we're getting out of the fire station quick when the alarm comes in? Are we being properly dressed? Are we showing up to the incident prepared to respond to whatever the case may be? We use data to drive a lot of that. We manage a lot of data analysis in the fire department, looking at what we call our turnout times. How fast do we, once we receive the alarm, how fast are we getting on the truck and getting out of the station? How fast are we getting to an incident in a safe manner? How are we delivering that service when we get there? Organizational success. That really encompasses a lot of areas. We've talked a little bit about training. That's one of the areas, but just really building overall organizational success. The next one is technology. And of course, the time that we live in now, technology is a huge part of what we do. The latest word out there is AI, right? Everybody's hearing about AI. Well, there's a lot of benefits to AI that we can use in the fire service, but there's also some downsides to it. And so we're kind of in that space now where we're trying to see how it can benefit the fire service, but also be safe about how we're doing it. The drone program is another big one. The drone program has given us a whole new avenue to keep our members safe, but also evaluate incidents, look for missing persons, people in the river, any calls like that, hazmat calls where we've got a situation, maybe we got an overturned rail car that's leaking something. I can use a drone to send down and look and see what's going on before I ever put my first member in harm's way. I can replace a drone. That's no big deal if it gets damaged. I mean, it is a big deal, but relative to the cost of a life, it is really not a big deal. I'll replace a drone over a member. So this adds a degree of safety for us. I will tell you that we currently have 2 members that operate our drones in our department. I'm proud to say that they basically ran the air operations program during Hurricane Helene out of Kingsport. Not only did we run the drone program, our 2 guys managed the entire air operations plan with helicopters, airplanes, and the whole deal, because this was kind of a new area that people in our area weren't used to doing. And they went to Irwin and that area over there and basically ran that entire air operation plan. So a lot of kudos go out to those guys. We're continuing to expand and grow that program, working with Kingsport Police Department to do a lot of joint stuff. We did some trial programs this year at Fun Fest and the Downtown Concert Series on working together, able to, if somebody has a medical emergency, we can utilize the drones to identify where they're at quickly and get the resources to them in a fast manner. So the drone program is just outstanding for us. Again, what we talked a little bit about, we use data to drive a lot of what we do. And so we're always looking at data analysis tools, incident reporting, things like that. So we use a lot of technology. Ongoing risk assessment. Obviously, as communities grow, the risk assessment changes. And so that has to be ongoing. We have an outstanding fire marshal's office, Chief Vandergrift, that leads that office for us, and his guys that work for him do an outstanding job. They're very data driven also. We use a lot of data in that area. And so it's ongoing for us. We're always looking at our risk assessments as the risks change in the city. And then lastly, member recognition. Our guys do a lot of great things, and ladies do a lot of great things every day. And, sometimes I hear, well, that's just part of their job. That's what they do. The reality is they do a lot of things that are even above that. And I always think it's important to recognize those members. So we look at ways that we can recognize those members throughout the year as these things happen. And of course, we do an annual recognition ceremony to recognize not only the members of our department and even citizens that do extraordinary things that respond to the call when that need goes out. So that's kind of our service excellence component. Community engagement, this is a big deal for me too. I love being out in front of people and talking to people and sharing about what we're doing in the fire department. We just recently started our Citizens Fire Academy back up. We just had our second class last night. We are hoping to start running 2 of those next year. It's a great opportunity. So if you have not participated in the past, I encourage you when that comes out next year to jump in and get involved. We go over pretty much every aspect of the fire department, what we do, the services we provide. Teach a little bit of CPR, a little medical care in there, talk about smoke alarms and escape plans and all that good stuff. So that's good with us. We're looking at starting an Explorer program. Barry Bricky, our public ed, if you haven't had the opportunity to meet Barry, he's a pretty outstanding individual, does a lot for our community, a lot in our school system. So we're looking to expand that program as well. And so we are also, lastly, I've been working with Brian Kearns at Dobbins Bennett and looking at doing some collaboration with him. They've got a great fire service program over there at Dobbins Bennett High School. I've had the opportunity to meet with him several times and looking at ways how we can work together on some projects moving forward. Thirdly, for us, professional development. Again, we talked about our premier status. It really starts at training. And so there's multiple levels of that. The in-service, which is our training that we have to do every year to keep up our certifications. Our EMS training to make sure our licenses are up to date and we're keeping up with that training. Professional development, as in gaining new skill sets, leadership training, management training. We're moving in a good direction there. And then our special operations training. Those are very specialized fields that take a lot of training. Those are areas where you don't run a lot of calls in those areas. So you have to train a whole lot to keep your skills up. And they're very technical and very precise skills. So we have a lot of focus in that area to keep our special operations guys up and prepared. Health and wellness. Years ago, firefighters, even when I got into business, you have a bad call. They say, hey, toughen up, brush it off. I'm sure the military is very much the same way. What we've learned is that's not necessarily the best way to handle it. So we've really had a lot of focus on mental and behavioral health and physical health and wellness. We have done a lot to move that project forward. Unfortunately, suicide has become a big problem in the fire service across the country. We are working very diligently in trying to improve in that area by doing health check-ins, using our EAP services. We have a peer support group within the fire department that we're currently expanding. And so that's a big deal to us. Cancer is another big nasty word that has really reared its head in the fire service in the last 10 or 15 years. And unfortunately, we've lost some members in this country to cancer related to fires and the carcinogens and toxins that we're exposed to. So we look at PPE management, our turnout gear, personal protective equipment. We don't want people wearing dirty turnout gear over and over again. Once a fire has happened, they're over that fire. We get that gear out of service, get it clean, get them in another set until that gear is clean. And so we're making sure we're keeping them in clean equipment. So that's a big thing for us. And again, I mentioned the peer support group. The International Association of Firefighters has a really good peer support group program. We've sent several of our members through that program. And we're currently working to improve that program and really fully implement that in our department. We're weird creatures of nature. We will talk to each other because we speak the same language, but very often we hesitate to talk to those outside of our world. And it's just a firefighter thing. I would compare that again to the military. Unless you've been a part of what you've witnessed and seen, it's hard to relate sometimes. So these peer support groups are really important to us. Injury prevention, of course, that's always ongoing. I had this rash when I first got here. I had like 5 guys injured, and none of them were on the job. It was all doing crazy stuff. One was a 4-wheeler. One turned a lawnmower over. So not only am I doing injury prevention on the job, I'm doing injury prevention when they're off duty, trying to keep them healthy and well. But good to say I've got all but one back, so we're in a good position there. But that's always ongoing for us, making sure we're safe in everything we do. And then lastly, work-life balance. It's easy to find yourself working all the time. We've probably all been there. Firefighters with our schedule tend to have a lot of part-time jobs, and sometimes, unfortunately, family may get neglected. So it's a big push for me when I came here was to make sure that we get good work-life balance, that we are providing opportunities for our members. whether it's a cookout, whether it's just get-togethers, doing stuff off the job together, and just making sure check-ins, making sure that we're balanced, everything, that guys are there for the kids and their activities and meeting all those needs and not working all the time. So we really push that pretty heavily. Prevention and education, I've kind of spoke on this already. We have a great fire prevention program. Barry does an outstanding job. Public education, again, I could probably add 4 more people to that section today, and we could do even more. There's only so much time in the day, but we are doing some great things there. We do have a car seat program. Right now, Barry Bricky is our only one, but in the spring, we've got, I think, about 9 or 10 members that are going to attend a car seat class. So I'm going to spread those throughout the city so we can have multiple stations with the ability to install car seats and do car seat training. So that'll expand that program. And again, our smoke detector program. If you need smoke detectors, or you have neighbors or friends or elderly that need some assistance with that, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to go out and check them, test them, or install them if we need to help out. And then sustainability, fiscal responsibility. Of course, that's a huge, budgets are getting tight. It's expensive. The fire service as a whole, we're not real big. We don't generate a lot of revenue. We spend a lot, but we don't generate a lot. It's the cost of doing business. The cost of a fire truck has probably doubled in the last 10 years. The cost of turnout gear has doubled in the last 5 years. So it's expensive. So we try to be very responsible with the money that we have. We look at how can we, if we purchase something, how can we use it in multiple areas, or how can we get longevity out of it? The city manager and I have had a lot of conversation on how can we create longevity on our engines and ladder trucks, because the cost is just so high now on these trucks. How can I get more life out of those trucks? Same thing with all the other equipment. Recruitment and retention. I am proud to say that we have not lost any individuals since I came here, and we've actually got some folks from other departments that are interested in coming to us. So it tells me we're doing something right. So I'm excited about that. We just did a hiring process. We've got 5 on a list right now that are just waiting for a job opening to come up that we'll hire off that list. Succession planning, getting our people next up. We do the next man up mentality in every rank, including mine. I try to expose my chief officers and even my captains and engineers to the next level to prepare them to make sure that they're ready when their time is called, that they can fill those spots with no voids. Fleet management is another area that we look at, making sure, again, that we're getting the longevity and the use out of this equipment, making sure we have the right equipment that we need to meet the needs of the city. That's a big thing for me, is being sustainable and being able to take care of any incident. We are truly an all hazards agency in the city. So any emergency that happens, historically, when somebody calls 911, if they don't know who to send, fire department's the one that gets the call. We'll take care of it from the cat to the building that fell down, whatever it may be. The fire department typically will handle it. Facilities management, we talked a little bit about facilities. We do a good job of taking care of the stations we have. Station 2, again, is we talked about that, is on the plan for replacement. And then lastly, department accreditation and ISO. 2026, we've just started our reaccreditation process. We'll be up for our site visit and peer review next year. So we're actively working on that, and we're also preparing for our next ISO visit, which leads me into, I'm going to talk a little bit. John had asked me to speak a little bit on ISO, and I'm going to wrap up. Hopefully I'm not boring you too bad today. So a little bit on the ISO. We're currently a Class 2 2Y. Class 2 is an excellent position to be in. The only higher class, obviously, is a Class 1. And so when I got hired, we talked pretty extensively about what would it look like to get to an ISO Class 1? Where would the benefits and the savings be? What would the costs be? Because all these things factor into your ISO rating. And so I just kind of gave you just a brief summary of what ISO looks like. And we could have an 8-hour class on that, and I would put every one of you to sleep. And I'm going to try not to do that. But basically, ISO is graded on your first due assignment. So what that means is that first alarm, if you had a house fire call, only those first arriving units are the only thing that are looked at during ISO. So they look at different areas. It makes up 105 points total. Communications is one, water supply, our operations of the fire department, and our community risk reduction is the last part. And under each of those, I know that's small writing. I was trying to get on one page. But under communications, you got the emergency reporting. How does your 911 system work? The number of dispatchers. We currently, if we're at full staff, we typically have 5 dispatchers at our 911 center. They take calls and dispatch calls. So we don't have separate call takers and then 911 operators. They do it all. And that's why, if you've seen recently, I'm going to throw a plug out there real quick. We just put out this new non-emergency number throughout the city. You may have saw it come out. That is to take some of that call load off of those 911 dispatchers so they can focus on emergencies. So this will be a great benefit for us as a city overall. It's just a big change in what we're used to doing. And then lastly, how's the department dispatch? We use computer-aided dispatch. Everything is pre-prompted in the system, so they don't have to guess on who's going to a call. When a call comes up at 123 Main Street, it's going to show what units and where they're coming from on who to dispatch. So it really enhances and speeds up the process for getting these emergency calls out. So those are the areas that they look at. And then water supply, how much water is available? What size grid? How do your grids lay out? What size water mains? What type of risks are in the community? How is the department notified? How does the fire department respond? And of course, we're 24/7, 365, on duty all the time. Our pumpers are rated to serve the needed fire flow throughout the city. There are only a couple spots in the city that are challenging. Those that we are already aware of that in that northeast area. And there's just certain limitations we face. And so we work within that space. And then lastly, overall, is your fire department operations. This is the biggest chunk. How many engine companies do we have? We have to have one reserve truck for every 8 engines. So for every 8 engines, we have to have at least one reserve engine ready to go. We typically run about 3 to 4 just due to making sure we have that depth that we need. Pump capacity, how much water will that engine pump? 1250, we're well over that. We have 1,500 and 2,000 gallon GPM pumps. So ladder trucks, same way. You're required to have a ladder truck if you have 5 or more buildings that are more than 3 stories tall. Department analysis, again, or deployment analysis. Again, we use a lot of data to drive what we're doing, so we're already in that space. Staffing, training, and then our operational considerations. And then lastly, community risk reduction. Barry Bricky, again, does a great job with this. We just recently put together a risk reduction committee. I've tasked them with several things, everywhere from marketing to social media management to identifying how the best ways are we getting out to the community, whether that's Facebook or email or whatever the case may be. So we've got a group that studies that on a regular basis. So in a nutshell, that's kind of ISO. To be able to get a 1 through an 8, you have to live within 5 miles of a fire station and then 1,000 feet of a fire hydrant. So just for example, and this is a lot of conversation we've had, and I know John and I talked about it a little bit, and Chris and I have had a lot of conversation about it. Well, what would it take to get to a 1, and where would we see a benefit if we did? So the best way, the easiest analysis on that is on a residence where you get your savings for your ISO rating. Between a 2 and a 1, there's not a lot of difference in what you're going. It's going to be very minimal what you're going to see. Where you see that is on the industrial and commercial side. So if you were wanting to attract a lot of industry and commercial to the city, then it may behoove us to put the investment in to get to a class 1. But if we're in an area like we are right now where we're doing a lot of redevelopment of things that we have, then we may be much better off to stay at a really strong class 2, which we are currently. We are going to be up for reevaluation in the coming year. There are some areas that we've touched to improve, and they give us a rating score sheet. It's about every 5 years. And we've improved in some of those areas. It is not unrealistic that we could get to a 1 or really close to a 1 without making any really major changes. I will know that a little more as we get into time, but be very proud that you're an ISO Class 2. Majority of the fire departments in this country are not at that level. We are part of a very small group of departments when you're comparing to Chicago's and New York's and Detroit's and LA and Atlanta and places like that. A Class 2 is a solid rank to be at. So be proud of that. That's really good for this city. And so if we can get to a Class 1, we certainly will. As a resident, you will not see much difference at all between the two, if any. It would be negligible if you did. But we are currently assessing that and looking at it and how we can improve in those areas. I don't let this drive the way I run the fire department. I let the community drive how we're going to run the fire department to make sure we're providing the best service. But we do look heavily into how we provide this service through ISO. And I think I try to stay within my time. But I think that's about it. I talked a lot, but I will be glad to answer some questions. And